What's up, everybody? Paddy here from Twisted Bar Gaming, and I'm here with the lovely Rob.
Hola.
Hola. So this week we're going to talk about change, and specifically, how much should a series change? Can a series change too much? Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? And yeah, we're going to just run through some games that we think have done it well, maybe not done it so well, and try and get down to the real crux of the matter of can a series change too much? Is it fundamentally a good thing or a bad thing when things, a beloved IP becomes something suddenly completely different? And speaking of beloved IP, Rob, we're going to start with one of yours, Sonic the Hedgehog.
Sonic the Hedgehog.
A series
little
so good at changing.
Yeah, well, Sonic the Hedgehog was a bit of a weird one because obviously there was towards the mid to late 90s, obviously everything had to transition into 2D, from 2D into 3D, and if you weren't doing that, you were just doing really poorly. So obviously Sega tried to work out how to do that. Probably it's one of those things where I feel like there's a couple of 3D Sonic games that are actually really good and they actually managed to work out really well, but outside of that, they seem to make these changes every single game, which just seem to be so far removed from what the fun part of Sonic the Hedgehog is, that it is a series that really doesn't understand how to change.
And why were they doing it? Were they chasing trends? Are they chasing the money? Like what?
It's really
what
hard.
is it that would make them do that?
There's one, for example, called Sonic Unleashed, where you've got this power or certain parts of the game where you transform into a werehog or a hedgehog or something. So you're basically transformed into this big furry beast who's really slow, and you beat things up. And it's just like, the
sounds
crux
like what
of
you
the
want
fun
from a Sonic game.
the crux of the fun of the Sonic the Hedgehog game is to go really fast. And the last thing you want to do is transforming into a big beast and smashing things. It's just, it's not fun. It's not why people buy that game. And it's just, I think for me, a Sonic team really sometimes don't really understand a Sonic the Hedgehog. And in fact, the only game that's done well is a Sonic Mania that came out, I want to say last year, or might have been the year before, but yeah, and obviously that was driven by quite a lot of fan communities and stuff. I was very much a fan-made a game, and then legitimatized for by Sega. And yeah, it is a really weird one. It's a series that really tries to embrace change, because each of the individual games they do are so different from the first ones, but it's almost certainly always in a bad way.
It's actually quite a talent, I think, consistently switching things up. Because the thing you did last time didn't work, so let's try something different, and every single time it's either like slightly worse or just doesn't work at all. I mean, that's a great example of a game, I think, a series that I think just has tried really, really hard to keep its finger on the pulse, and just has massively slipped behind. But then there are also game series that struggle when they don't change, and maybe they don't necessarily struggle financially, because Call of Duty is still a complete behemoth, still selling tons and tons of copies. Sells. But that doesn't change the fact that slightly different weapons, different feel, different place, different location, but every COD pretty much the same thing since the first Modern Warfare.
Yeah, and it is a weird one really with a Call of Duty, because it's like one of those things where what else can you do to Call of Duty? What else would you be able to do outside of reinventing the whole wheel? Of saying, actually, a Call of Duty, the next Call of Duty is going to be an RTS.
There'd be riots.
I mean,
the tweens would riot.
I'm not sure. I mean, I suppose that's maybe just me being a bit narrow-minded. But let's say, for example, okay, let's change it up and let's go. Oh, we're going to change Call of Duty into. We're going to increase the size of the maps, and everyone's just going to go. Oh, it's just trying to be a Battlefield. Or you can go, okay, let's try and make it into an open world game where you go into different things and then and go and explore different camps, and then everyone's going to be going, oh, it's just trying to be a Far Cry. How could you move that series?
Yeah, I mean, it feels like the only way to really fundamentally change that would be through the single player. I think the multiplayer is what the multiplayer is at this point, and it's the expectation. It's what makes people keep coming back, and it's what they make all their extra money on. And they made it very clear with Black Ops 4, they do not give a damn about single player. That is gone.
Yeah.
My days of buying Call of Duties are now, I think, also gone as well. Because, I mean, you can say what you like about those campaigns. I've not really played one that I thought, oh, that was terrible. They were all fun.
Really good.
They have their merits.
Really,
and for me, it was play the campaign, use the campaign as motivation to get online for a few hours, and then probably just slip away when everybody gets way, way better than me. But yeah, it just feels like it's a series that, I guess it's moving with where the money is, and there's some stats some games. I think when you look at change, it's really interesting because there's this really clear. I think you really start to think about the conversations that I had behind the scenes in terms of what is a financial decision and what is a creative decision. So if you want to move on to a couple of games that have definitely changed and probably for the better, but in doing so have left behind maybe what the core fans or the core values that people loved about them, Assassin's Creed and Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, the games that we've talked about previously. And what is it about Assassin's Creed? Was it a kind of a cynical financial decision to say, what do we do with this series? Well, big RPGs are doing well. Look at Skyrim, look at The Witcher 3, and what are they doing? So how can we make the next Assassin's Creed, which would be Assassin's Creed Origins, different? Or was it a creative decision? Was it a group of people being like, we actually think that there is a big RPG, there's a big RPG in there, and something's gone stale? I mean, I don't know what you think about.
Yeah, it's really weird with the Assassin's Creed series, and again, this same idea goes with Breath of the Wild. Both the brand new Assassin's Creed and Breath of the Wild are fantastic video games. They really are. They are really, really good, and I don't think anyone can say that they're not. I think even if not into those sorts of games, you can still appreciate and go, God, isn't that a really well made game? And it's one of those things where I definitely felt like this more so with Breath of the Wild, because I think it's a series that's closer to my heart. That the things that Breath of the Wild didn't have from the older games were some of the cool things that I really missed whilst I was playing Breath of the Wild. And like I said, again, Breath of the Wild is a fantastic experience and definitely like a 9.5 out of 10, just like all the other Zelda games. But for me now, I don't feel like I've got a proper Zelda fix since 2010 Skyward Sword. I want to say 2010, might have been 2009, I'm not sure, but since Skyward Sword, I've had a really good open world experience, but it's so far removed from what the Zelda games were. And I know a lot of people will say, well, actually it's more like the original game, like the first ever Zelda game, which I completely understand that, but at the same time, it wasn't the original 1986 games that made all of the fans fall in love with the series. It was Ocarina of Time, it was Twilight Princess, it was Majora's Mask, it was all those ones who had a really strong formula. And the reason why I enjoyed my Zelda games is because they only come every 4 or 5 years, and then I don't know. I don't know whether it's just me being caught in the past, but I really enjoy going through the big dungeon and getting the brand new item, and then using that item to beat the boss by getting the big key and all that stuff. I really missed it.
Yeah, I mean, you're definitely not alone. I 100% agree. Like, I came away from, I don't know, probably 60, 70 hours of playing that game, having had a fantastic time, being like, so I'd never get to have to mess around in an actual proper dungeon. Like, that's not a thing that we're doing. And
yeah, like there were the ones they had in there, but they just they felt
but
like
they were very
they felt like
poor imitations of what dungeons have been before in Zelda games. And like, I guess you also look at it from the other perspective of, Assassin's Creed Origins and Odyssey are probably the best Assassin's Creed games that exist, right? I mean, they have taken the series on a new direction, and it feels right for the series. It feels right for the world. But that doesn't change the fact that this is mostly down to the locations. But you've lost some of the exploration and replaced it with the kind of Ubisoft trope of busy work that I'm obsessed with, because that's how I play games, and I really can't handle not clearing all the question marks off the map, and they get me every time. But that doesn't mean that sort of nothing has matched the feeling of running along the rooftops of Rome or Florence, or and I know that's just a location thing and it's not really fair, but when you go for these more open, sprawling areas, because you're trying to tell a much bigger story and you're trying to put in as much content as possible and keep people playing for as long as possible, you definitely lose some of that magic, some of that exploration, some of the depth. I think
because that was it. I mean,
it's difficult because they're still better.
This is the strange thing, because arguably Breath of the Wild's a better game than quite a lot of the Zelda series as well, and as you say, the new Assassin's Creed game are actually, when it comes down to it, when you say what's better, this game or this one, you have to go, well, it has to be these newer ones because they are great. But like you say, I do miss running over the rooftops, and I miss doing those aerial assassinations from 3 stories high without having to worry about what thing I've got equipped and how powerful the guy is underneath me. For me,
just feeling like an assassin.
Yeah, for me that's what it was about. It was not necessarily about the challenge of the game. It wasn't about necessarily, it was about the best missions ever. It was just about the feel and having the White Hood walking through a crowd, threading through a crowd, and then running up the side of a building to the top of a church, and then heading into some sort of a temple thing, and also the whole modern side of the story as well. The old Desmond story and how that all. I was really into that. I was really invested in it, and it's just it's not necessarily that, as we said, that the new games are bad. It's just they're so far removed from what they were. I'm genuinely concerned as a fan of the older games that I will not get to play that sort of experience again. That I am now, this is the new world. We are now doing this, and this is what Assassin's Creed is. And if you want what was in the past, then you're just going to go back and play it.
Yeah, just go back and play. Play the remastered editions. And I think that actually moves us on quite well to a couple of games that have done change really well. I mean, one is an entire franchise, and I think when you talk about being worried about not getting that same experience that you're used to, Mario is the perfect example of a series that is okay, so you know exactly what you're getting here, and yet we are going to fill it to the brim of stuff that you didn't even think was possible, and it's wonderful and it's magic, and they nail it. I mean, Odyssey feels completely different to Galaxy, feels completely different to all the 2D stuff, and yet it's not at all. And it's exactly the same thing. It's just a 3D. It's just a brilliant 3D platform where it's packed full of incredible ideas. I think they are the masters. I think of change.
Yeah, the master in terms of the sense of that. As you say, each game feels distinctly different. But I think what they do very strongly is I think they must, in the a development process, choose a theme very early, and it's a very easy. Theme that they then say, okay, we're going to build a Mario game, but inside this constraint. So when they said, okay, well, let's make Super Mario a Galaxy, and they probably, this is just me putting my finger in the air and going, this is what they did. But what I imagine they did is they first thought of, okay, Mario running around a sort of a 3D. A 3D globe. How can we work with that? Let's expand that outwards. How can we? And that's how they start their game, and just keep expanding until they got a game. And then when they did Odyssey, they go, okay, throwing a hat at something and turning into it, or change it over. They seem to have that one core idea,
that knits everything together.
Builds outwards. Yeah. And that idea is so random and so obtuse from the game that come out beforehand that I think it always works. That's why it always works.
Yeah, no, they are really, really brilliant at it. And another one that's very different. This is change. This is completely
a
recent change, completely left turn. So the new God of War, basically a reimagining of a very, very popular award-winning series. God of War 1, 2, and 3 are on the PS2 and PS3. Great games that people loved. And then, bring God of War back. Are we excited about that? Do we care? And then, hang on. So you're telling me that this angry revenge man is now this sort of tortured father figure? I mean, it's just brilliant. Everything from the narrative, the world you're playing in is completely different. And for me, it shows an industry that's changing, an industry that's growing up, that I've had lucky enough from my age, and I guess you as well, to be growing up with.
Yeah.
You know, I feel like we saw the infantile, hack and slash, you know, whatever, which still has its place, still fun. I'm not saying it's not. And then this more kind of considered, serious, still brilliant and lore-filled and, you know, interesting game. I just changing, completely mixing things up in such a way that it's almost unrecognizable from what it was before.
Well, I think it's interesting talking about a God of War, because when you compare it to like what we were just talking about before with like Assassin's Creed, God of War, you know, from moving from God of War to the new God of War that came out this year, that feels like a very natural a progression. That feels like the series like evolving, you know what I mean? That feels like a very, you know, okay, let's take a God of War 3. Let's take the things that we're not so good at with God of War 3. Well, it's a very over-the-top thing. Like, there's not much there in terms of story. It's just some guy going, rah, like, I'm a huge fucking arsehole, and throwing out there, yeah, I'm going to murder everyone. Well, let's try and flip that on. They took a considered approach and come to a place which, although they actually changed the game's a genre itself. They moved it away from hack and slash and brought it into third person action, story driven, you know, with a mild bit of a sandboxness to it, and that felt like a natural step. Whereas what happened with the Assassin's Creed series, I felt like the Assassin's Creed series felt like a much more like of a harsh left turn. You know what I mean? It's not necessarily a natural evolution of what the Assassin's Creed games were, but it's a strong a left turn. I think that's for me, is the core difference of how a God of War has done change slightly better than the Creed series.
Yeah. So I mean, if we look at how, you know, how much, that fundamental question that we asked at the beginning, how much should a series change? It feels like there's a through line through all of this. You know, what's the point where you think where a series shouldn't just change? It should just be a new thing. It should just be a new IP. Like if Assassin's Creed Origins was, you know, the fall of Egypt or the rise of Egypt or something, and it had nothing to do with Assassin's Creed, and it was just the same game, you know, without the modern day stuff, and like, do you think it would be better? Do you think it would be worse? Do you think how would that impact?
There's kind of two answers to that question, really, isn't it? Because it would be better in the sense of that the game would be no worse. You wouldn't get a game by taking the Assassin's Creed a title out of it. It wouldn't be any worse. It'll still be just as good. I think from the commercial aspect, obviously people know names sell things, so from a commercial point of view, obviously it makes sense put the Assassin's Creed name on it. So when you start trying to think about it from a creative point of view and not actually trying to think about the commercial side of it, if the new Assassin's Creed game was a brand new IP, that means that what they possibly could do is they could put the older series perhaps on hold for a few years and create that kind of a buzz for it, that actually 4 or 5 years down the line we're coming out with a brand new Assassin's Creed game when it doesn't perhaps feel as stale, but it could still keep all the tropes that I originally had without having to make this sharp left-hand turn. And I think if we were to do that, then obviously that's us creating brand new IPs, and that is only a good thing. But if we don't do that, all we're going to have is the same IPs for years and years and years, that when they just start to feel a bit old, they will just change. And I think it's just one more thing on top of everything else that pushes people away from creating brand new IPs. And I think that for me is the one part of it that makes me a little bit concerned.
Yeah, I mean, God of War could have been, you know, a Viking game.
Yeah,
you know, it could have been they could have stayed with mythology, they could have stayed with the gods, but just not. And maybe had a few little cute references to Kratos, had the same story, you know, if they want to say, like, you know, this is all mythology, but this isn't him anymore. I think, you know, it felt like they had something to say, and I think that's where, you know, I mentioned it earlier, where the kind of the creative and the commercial clash. I think it felt like, you know, obviously it's great from a commercial perspective that you're bringing God of War back. Sony, I'm sure, you know, doing backflips, but they are doing it because they have something fundamental to say. They have a story to tell that they believe in, and and they're pushing that forward in a new way. And I think God of War is, I could see this having a few more God of Wars in this style, and then maybe then it will go away in exchange for something new. And I think we do see that pressure. Like I truly believe that Naughty Dog could have done whatever they wanted after Uncharted 4, but we're getting The Last of Us Part 2, and I imagine there's a little bit of commercial pressure on there, but maybe and hopefully they still have more to say on that. So it is, it is a. I think those worlds really do clash, and so how would you answer that question then? How much should a series change?
Well, I think the answer is really driven by like a strong understanding of a lot of the market in which the game is best to operate in the sense of like, obviously, I mean, we talked about earlier, Call of Duty, yeah? There's no real easy answer to like, okay, how do we move the Call of Duty series forward? Do we do what I was just talking about with like Assassin's Creed, where we create a brand new IP which can break the shackles, and then we just put Call of Duty on hold for a few years? I don't think that would actually work for Call of Duty. I don't think if people were to put that away for 4 to 5 years, I don't think they'll be, oh my god, they're bringing back a Call of Duty. I don't think that would have the same impact as what perhaps Assassin's Creed would. But I think Call of Duty could easily move into the free-to-play market, or like the yearly a subscription thing, and it could change in a way that quite a lot of people probably could deem quite evil, but I have to admit it's quite a lot less evil than what they're doing right now, which is creating a free-to-play game but charging people £55 per year for it. Whereas actually, let's just have our Call of Duty a subscription service where each year you get a brand new set of maps and a new setting to play in. Next one's going to be in Argentina, and there you go. You've got Call of Duty a la Argentina from 2019 to 2020, and I think that would work. Call of Duty doesn't need to come out every year, because that's when it does start to feel stale. But if it's like, if you think about a Rainbow Six Siege, which I don't think many people will have a bad word to say about it these days, but you don't hear people talking like, God, isn't Rainbow Six Siege just the exact same a game it was 3 years ago? And you go, well, yeah, because it's the exact same game. Like, what you're expecting, it's games as a service. But
yeah,
to resell a game each year, that's slightly different from last year. It's just, it works and it makes a lot of money, but creatively it's just bloody a bankrupt, really, isn't it? Yeah.
Oof, man, we've covered a lot of ground. So games can change. Yeah. Games can change too much. They can change not enough. They can get changed just right. They can. It is difficult. Like, it is really difficult. I think I 100% agree with you. In that, I think there's really, really smart change. So God of War, there's very tactical, I think, change in Assassin's Creed, and they're doing their best to not overstay their welcome. They're taking another year off next year, I think is great.
Smart move.
Is a smart move. And then the games that very change within themselves. I mean, Fortnite keeps changes like every couple months, I think, with the different seasons and stuff, and it's still the same map. But they make kind of little things to keep people invested and keep them interested. So it's a really difficult topic, I think. I think fundamentally what it comes down to, and I think what I'd like to see is, I'd like to see more studios trying different things. If you have a great idea, don't tack it on to an IP that you already have. Do something different. Try and create something, a new IP, and but then on the other hand, this is an industry that's all about iterating. That's all about making things that we have and making them better. So yeah, man, answers on a postcard, please. Please.
Yeah, please do, because this is a tricky one.
This is a tricky one. So let us know in the comments below what you think. Can a series change too much? Do you have a series that you love that isn't that series anymore? It's changed so completely, or do you have a series that you didn't care about, but now it's your thing because of changes that it's made? Let us know in the comments below. If you like this video, then please like and share and subscribe and do all that lovely stuff. We're just a little teeny tiny channel, and we very much appreciate it, and we love talking to you guys. So you can also join our Discord, which you can find in the description box below, and keep an eye out for all our other stuff at youtube.com/twistedbygaming, and we will see you again very, very soon. Bye.